It's time for Dr. Rademaker's prescription for transformation. Let's tap into your own authentic genius and live the life you desire.
You are now listening to...
Join Dr. Rademaker for an enlightened conversation about our brain intelligence, our body intelligence, and our energy intelligence. And now, here's your host, Dr. Bart Rademaker.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, prescription for your transformation, real people, real conversations, and real success. And as always, I'm happy to be here, excited to be here. How are you doing, Sedona?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. I appreciate you racing through the crazy traffic in Arizona, like there's a lot of traffic there, I guess. But it is, yeah. But I really have to do a shout out for you because I really appreciate what you do for me. You make this really work out really well. So today, this is part 2, permission to be human. And, prescription for your transformation is really about what is it that we can tap into so that we can be the best version of ourselves. And again, as I like to remind people, I mean, we are running our lives based on all sorts of memes and learnings that we have received from other people. And interesting enough, what happens over our lifetime is that we are dependent on all the downloads that were given to us in the first 7 years. And these downloads, from our parents, from our friends, from our siblings, and other sources were just dumped into your unconscious mind. And now they play a role in your life today. And so it's no wonder that at times, we are challenged. And anyone who, is feeling that they're not challenged in life, then either they're not out there living life or they're not being quite honest with themselves. And I see a lot of both of that. And so part of my purpose here is to help people connect with their true self, so that they can be everything that they really want to be in their life. And it starts off with being, giving yourself permission to be human. And so what does that entail? Just so I'm clear about that. What does that really entail? That entails a lot of work. It's focused work. It's consistent work. It's scary work. It's work from multiple sources. And it's really coming down to a lot of different things that you need to do. And that's, getting into that space of awareness, embracing what's true, embracing what's real in your life, and having the courage to be vulnerable, having having the ability to be in that space where your beliefs can be totally challenged, because that's what needs to happen. Because if you're stuck with a bunch of beliefs that are now running your life and they don't serve you at the highest level, then you need to change that. And to stay in this space of denial, to be in the space of being asleep, really is not going to help you. And so again, by whose prescription are you living your life? And if you're not feeling right, if you're not feeling in alignment, or there's an internal disturbance within you, then it's time to do something about that. And that's one thing I just wrote another vlog, and it's about that very soft voice in the back of your head, as we put it. We all call it intuition, or you call it whatever it is that you want to, but it's that alert, that alarm bell that's going off in the back of your mind when you're doing something or want to do something, or thinking about something that you really shouldn't be doing, whether it's an action that you should be taking or it's an action that you're not taking. And so over the years, oftentimes I would have this little voice in my head, you got to do this, you got to do this. And now that I'm in that space of much greater awareness, I'm realizing that, wow, if I had only listened to that voice 20, 30 years ago, my life would be very different right now. Not that I'm complaining about it. It's just that the unconscious mind is a part of ourselves that we need to listen to. And so that's where that deep work comes in, because in the world of what we call neurolinguistic programming, which is the neurology, the language, and the programming of our behavior. And it's really transformation from the heart. The concept of the unconscious mind is that, it has the blueprint of the perfect body. It's the source of our emotions. It's also that place where all of our memories are stored. And it's also that place where our memories that are quite traumatic are kept away from us. And so as we age, as we get more, insights and perspectives and all sorts of different, let's call them virtues, right? So characteristics of beingness that serve us at a higher level, then these traumatic experiences start popping up. And that's when we can make some of the changes. And so let's talk a little bit about our behavior, because disempowering behavior, and I don't like to use the word negative, because negative, it's misleading. Disempowering behavior, what is that? That's your depression, that's your anxiety. Those are all sorts of behaviors that really don't serve you at the highest level, that kind of keep you in a funk, that kind of slow you down, they reduce your energy. And so where do they actually come from? And so I have to get Sedona part of this as well. So Sedona, where does this irrational behavior, these disempowering thoughts, where do you think they come from?
Boy, if I knew. That would be the golden key to life, I feel like.
You're about to find out, by the way.
Yeah, I hope so. I really couldn't tell you. I have no idea where they come from, but I wish a lot more people did know the answer to that question. I feel like it would make the world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. So really what it is, it's based on our beliefs. And these are beliefs, these are memes, these are perspectives, these are decisions that you've made over time that really are unreal. They're unrealistic. And the problem with that is that they turn out to be very self-sabotaging, and we call this irrational thinking. And it's not the same. We don't use the word irrational thinking in the classic term. In this context, it's irrational because the beliefs are not true. They're not real. And they're a set of truths that we believe are true, and we're stuck with them, and they don't serve us. And so the key here then is, okay, where do those beliefs come from? And so what is it that we can do about them? So let's put it in context. So let's say something happens in your life, like an action. And then based on your belief system, you're going to respond to that. And so how does that actually work? So whenever something happens outside of us, and this is what we call the external environment, that external environment, we have to focus on that. So, and that's what's interesting with people is that if 3 or 4 people see the same event, they all have a different experience. Part of it is because we create what's called an internal representation of the outside world. So within the brain, we create this representation of what's real. But what's factual is, it's not real. It's just your construct of whatever it is that's happening outside of you. And what's interesting is this, is that if you have your conscious mind and you have your unconscious mind, right? Those are parts that are well established. So the conscious mind can actually process 200 bits of information per second. There's some variation of that actual amount, but 200 bits of information per second. So let's equate that to how the speed by which a snail moves, okay? Now, you look at the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind can actually process 2 million bits of information per second. Let's say a jet fighter at Mach 5 or whatever. So big difference how they process. Because again, the unconscious mind is responsible for a lot of things. It's your heartbeat, it's your breathing, it's your physiology, it's everything that's happening in your body. So there's a lot of data, if you will, a lot of information that needs to be processed instantly. But our conscious mind can't handle that. I don't care if we're only using 20% of our brain. But the point is that our conscious mind can't handle it. So what happens, to the remaining, 2 million bits of information that aren't being processed? Well, they're filtered out. They're filtered out. As that information comes in, they're filtered out through our beliefs, our memories, our decisions, our memories, a variety of different things. And so that information is completely downsized. So now again, you have an internal representation of the outside world that's totally filtered. And based on your beliefs and your memories, you're going to have a completely different internal representation than somebody else. So out of that, you get what's called the meaning of what's happening. So you focus on something and you get a meaning of that. So now, based on your identity, and one more thing that I'm going to share in a minute, you're going to respond to that internal representation or that meaning. So, but part of what's important in all of that is what we call your state. Now, your state is based on your emotional status, if you will. Happy, sad, energized, low energy. And it has to do, again, with your physiology. So are you eating well? Are you resting well? Recovery is such a critical part in our physiology. That's one thing that we ignore. And our hydration as well. So having those parts contribute effectively to a healthy physiology is going to affect your state. So then again, you can decide based on all sorts of situations to be in a lousy state, that whatever information you get in is going to be filtered, it's going to be seen through that lens of that emotion. So there's part of the challenge with the meaning. So the other part is then what happens to that meaning? Well, that's the identity. That's the context of what that means. And what do I mean by that? Okay. It's your identity. Who are you? Who are you in this world? And it's based on your values. People who, let's say, value money more than health, obviously then if they're going to make their decisions based on the hierarchy of values. In the coaching process, we look at people and we ask people, okay, what are your top values? Well, let me ask you, Sedona, what are your top 3 values?
My top 3 is loyalty, trustworthiness, and probably, along with trustworthiness, probably honesty.
Awesome. And so the values that we are in, how should I put it, in top of our mind are those values that at any given moment, whatever the context is, we're thinking of those values. Now, in general, if I were to ask Sedona, okay, let's do some work and let's do some coaching here and let's figure out what your global values are, you might actually shift those. And that's what I did. When I understood more about values, and then I looked at the sheet with about 30 or 40 different, values, it's like, oh no, okay, I got to change these things. And over the years, I've mastered my values insofar that my first one is health, because then, my body, my physiology is the temple of everything, right? So that temple has to be taken care of, because if that physiology is not, if that physical form is not well taken care of, then that's going to cause all sorts of problems. And the second one is love. And that's just, we're just going to leave it out there. We're not going to go in there. We're going to talk about love at a different time. There's so many, once you start debating love or talking about love, then everybody has their own vision of it. Actually, I'm going to say something about love. And this is a realization that I've had over the years. And interesting enough, in the world of coaching, compared to mentoring, compared to counseling, we try to help people appreciate what their model of the world is having that awareness, having that sensory acuity of what's actually happening in their life and in themselves, and noticing that, and then asking them, okay, what is it that you like or dislike about this, and what is it that you want to change? And so what's interesting, how often I've heard from people and from all, lives, from all areas, from all religions, races, whatever, is they tell you, oh, you got to love yourself. So hang on a second. I can't just give myself lip service. I can't just tell myself to do certain things because it's inauthentic. The deep work, as I'm talking about in this show, has to be done. We all desire what's called divine happiness. And for us to have that divine happiness, we actually have to resolve whatever makes us unhappy. It's that simple. Now, the actual resolution of each of those, that might be difficult. But the truth is, all we have to do is resolve whatever makes us unhappy and define divine happiness in any shape or form that you want to. So when it comes to love, I realize, well, hang on a second. When people are telling, oh, you got to love yourself. I'm tough on myself. I am self-critical. And then I go in a temporary funk for a moment. But that, for me, oftentimes is a bit of leverage to say, okay, great. This is BS. This is uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. I've got higher standards. So let me do something. All right. So it's that energy, if you will, that's now I'm going to call it negative energy. That negative energy taking me away from where I want to go, right, is energy that pushes me to where I want to go. And so when it comes to love, right, all you really have to do is take away everything that prevents you from love. All the stuff. If you take away all the challenges, all the hurdles, all the blocks that prevent you from loving, then you can be love. Instead of doing love, as everybody tells you to do, you just be love. So anyhow, I digress for there for a moment. So getting back to that identity. So my third one is what I call universal connection. And as I appreciate all the things that I've done over the years, I can now understand that my decision-making process really goes in that order. First health, then love, and then universal connection. However, there are times that my needs also need to be met. And in behavior psychology, we talk about 6 different needs. And Tony Robbins, talks a lot about this, and he does a great program out there. So if anybody, this is, an advertisement for Tony Robbins, go to one of his events. They're absolutely amazing. It'll change your life, and it changed mine. And as I've shared on this radio show, I was at the top of the pyramid of medicine after 17 years of medical training. I thought I should know everything. I read the Greek classics. I read all the French, philosophers, the European philosophers, and I was still stuck. Went to Tony Robbins, everything changed. And the needs that we talk about, there's 6 of them. There's certainty, there's variety, there's love and connection, and significance. These are what they call the primary needs. Certainty, we need to know that, certain things in life have the stability, that the ceiling is not going to cave in, things like that. My car is going to work. And variety. If we did the same thing every single day, it'd be kind of boring after a while and probably go nuts. Love, connection, and significance, that we have meaning. And then the more spiritual kinds, however you want to define that, that's that space where we find real happiness and real fulfillment. The 4 primary ones are very important. We need that connection. We need purpose in life. But it's the growth and the contribution, that as we call it, that spiritual part, that really make a huge difference in our life. And so we will violate things that we believe in or what we value to make sure that we take care of our needs. And that's part of the challenge with disempowering behavior. That behavior that now is run by a certain belief, which is translated into a certain need, and therefore you're going to behave in a certain way. And so what are some of those things that actually happen? Well, one is, a fear of being left alone, a fear of rejection, a fear of failure. Interesting enough, I used to be what's called, quote unquote, a perfectionist. And I never really liked that. I'd like to have, high standards. And I think life is about having, the best standards. I think in all of us, now let me rephrase that. in all of us, there's so much more in us than we give ourselves credit for. So all we have to do is tap into that. And again, that's the purpose of the show, meeting all sorts of different people, getting their different insights, sharing them with you, so that if you get a nugget of information, of insight from someone that I interview that can change your life, like it's happened with me so many times, then this show is really worth it. Because there's a genius inside of you. Einstein said that. There's a genius inside of everyone. But there's a lot of stuff that's preventing that from coming out. Most of that is ourselves. Most of that is our own self-criticism, our own self-sabotaging, and also the fear of losing out, actually. So one of the things, there's a great saying in Australia, and that's called the tall poppy syndrome. And poppy is just a flower, and then oftentimes, one of the top poppies comes up, and then people would cut it down because people don't want to. In general, let me rephrase that. That part of connection is so big, that part of certainty is so big, that there's a lot of fear if we're left behind. And so, in addition to that, if you're somebody, if you're what I call a superachiever, I don't believe in overachievement. There's no such thing in my books as overachievement. But superachievement, if you're a high achiever, then you're going to lose a lot of your friends. You're going to lose your family. And that can be scary. And doing that, getting into that space, getting outside of that comfort zone, is actually where growth really happens. It's where we get to expand. I mean, the best analogy is going to the gym. If you consistently just did the treadmill, nothing else, you'd improve after a certain period of time. But after that, you're done. Nothing else is really going to expand beyond that. And in fact, talking about expansion of physical abilities, vitality, what's really important is that time for recovery. And that's also related to giving yourself permission, right? To chill out, to relax, to rejuvenate, to recover. And that's what we need to do with our mind as well, with our beliefs. And giving that opportunity to decide, is there a way that I can look at what's happening in my life differently? Is there another truth? So any time, there's a disturbance inside of you, any time that you're stuck, anytime that you have, let's call it, that disempowering behavior, ask yourself, what's true right now? And then decide, what's actually great about the situation. I can't tell you how often I hear from people the statement, their worst times became their best times. Shamin, the author of Positive Intelligence, Shamin Shirzad, I think that, or Shirzad Shamin, something like that. Great book. Get it. He's got an incredible assessment called the, I guess, the PQ. It's about positive intelligence. And it's really all about, your sensory awareness or sensory acuity. And what's fascinating is how he interviewed. He had a lecture, I guess, and there were about 500 senior executives in this lecture, and he handed out this little 3x5 card, and he had them write down, anonymously, what they're most fearful of, that people would find out about them. And what was interesting is that once you got all these 500 cards, he started reading all these cards, pretty much, the majority had very similar things written down on a card, and the whole mood in the room just dramatically changed. People were more relaxed because we beat ourselves up. I had one of my interviews. It was a very cool, insightful statement, and that is this. And let me ask you this, Sedona, and I probably asked you this before, but we'll ask you again. So pretend you didn't get this question before. So if you were to treat your family and your friends and your colleagues and anybody else that you meet in the same way that you treat yourself, would you actually have any more friends or family members or colleagues?
Definitely not.
Right. And here's a person that is, for her youth, is so much more advanced than so many people and has, incredible awareness. And a lot has to do with the community that she came from. That sounds weird. Basically, family that she came from. And the environment, I should say. And so beating yourself up, that's really easy. But part of it is also, again, that alarm that says, well, hang on a second. This isn't right. What can we do about this? And what am I going to experience, if I keep this up? What am I not going to experience if I keep this up? Am I really going after perfection? Does perfection actually exist? The statement is that, perfection is the lowest standard. Well, I don't agree with that. I think perfection is not a standard because it's simply not attainable. Why set a certain standard if you never can have it? And that's perfection. I don't like that saying that it's perfectly imperfect. No, we're not imperfect. We just have faults and we have weaknesses. Because if you imply imperfect, then you have to imply perfect. No, we just have a bunch of BS in our heads, in our experiences, well justified, that they make sense, and all you have to do is do the deep work and make the changes in your life. So I'm going to make a little shift here, for example, because when we talk about that disempowering belief and therefore action, so any of those disempowering states, that's stressful. That creates a disturbance inside of you. And so the question is that we can ask ourselves, besides, what's really true? Is there different beliefs that I can have? You can certainly look at it from the perspective of, well, and there's who's the author? Kelly McGonigal. She wrote a great book on the upside of stress. Really definitely get that. And so what she talks about is that stress is good. Stress is that alert, that signal that you need to do something about it. And so therefore it's your cue, your trigger to start making a shift. And then making some internal monologue with yourself, or dialogue if you like, in determining, okay, what is it that I need to focus on? What's great about this stress right now? How can I shift this around so that I can actually learn something? This is my opportunity to learn. So one of the things, in any kind of relationships, as an example, right? I know that never happens with you, Sedona. There's stress, and there's fear, there's all sorts of things happening. It's all based in fear, by the way. And so then what I try to do as much as I can, and I'm just starting this, I'm getting better at this, is taking the opportunity to find out, okay, what can I learn from this stress right now? What is it that I can do right now to learn and grow and expand? For me, it all fits in with my purpose. And that's another part that we're going to have to talk about in a moment. Because the challenge I believe that a lot of people have is that they're not clear as to why they're on this earth. You can come up with all sorts of esoteric or normal explanations and or general global explanations. But everybody is unique. Everybody has this uniqueness about that, the unique genius, the unique talent. That as long as you don't tap into that, you're depriving the rest of the world of something that's absolutely magnificent. It's interesting when you look. So there's a great question that I'm going to ask you now. All right, It's not a morbid question. I'm just going to frame it that way. It's not morbid at all.
Okay.
But what's a cemetery to you?
A cemetery to me?
Yeah. What's that to you?
A cemetery to me is a lot of things. I mean, as most people know, it is a place to bury bodies, but in a lot of circles that I come from, we also refer to that as kind of like almost like metaphorically just somewhere that our ideas or something kind of lay to rest. Like it doesn't just have to be for bodies, it can be for anything.
Well, spot on, actually, and actually even more precisely, this is, what got me, all the untold stories, all the unwritten books, all the transformations that didn't happen because they just didn't go after that. And so it is the prescription for your transformation. Me being a doctor, I get to use that term, by the way. It is about how do you take care of yourself. It is all about that self-care. And one of my clients, actually, she's going to do a great job putting together a workshop, about self-care. And I think that's something we actually take for granted. Oh yeah, I'll drink a little bit of water or I'll get a little bit of sleep. I mean, the truth is that, we don't exercise enough. Most of us, I don't. We don't eat the right foods. Clearly, that's obvious. Then we don't sleep well enough. And we embark in all sorts of behaviors that really create a dysfunction within ourselves. Watching TV, for example. TV is I didn't realize this, but I might get this number wrong, but I think the average number of hours that the American adult watches TV is anywhere between 4 to 6 hours per day. A high school child or teenager, by the time they graduate, they will have seen anywhere between 250 to 350,000 commercials. So there's a lot of data, a lot of information coming into us, downloaded into us, that causes anxiety, causes depression, causes demotivation. It's one of the biggest reasons, for besides probably sugar, that causes all sorts of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual disorder. And so we've got to take care of ourselves. So, what does that really mean? It comes down again to that little voice in our head. And clearly, that little voice is also dependent on all the downloads you got before the age of 7. But if you just simply took the time and you took the time to pay attention to what more successful people are doing in life, and we look at success in the form of, like, let's say, sports, as far as physiology, not in the form of celebrity status, and look at that and realize, well, if I'm overweight, right, and here's a person that has the same body as I do, and they look super healthy and I don't, well, that's obviously a clue that I could do better. And so listening to that voice inside of us, choosing not to ignore it, and also paying attention to what you're feeling emotionally. Again, we all desire divine happiness. And so being sad doesn't make any sense. Being depressed doesn't make any sense. At least to be that all the time. Any emotion, any experience, right, without being judgmental of it, without being critical of it, makes sense somewhere. And part of that, what we can do about it is figure out what's going on, resolve it, heal it, hold it, and sometimes just accept it. Accept the fact that, okay, this is how it's going to be. So giving yourself permission to be human, part of it means that you've got to learn. You've got to go out there and start living consciously. You have to learn self-acceptance. And this is from a book by Nathaniel Branden. I think it's called Guide to Living Consciously. And he talks about one of the big issues of depression, anxiety, sadness, addictions is, lack of self-esteem. And again, it's what I've been talking about. And so starting off, living consciously, just being aware of what's going on in your life, just taking that extra breath, that extra moment to kind of assess, okay, what's really happening right here? And I forget who said it, but it's in his book, and it comes from somebody else. I think it's Covey. He talks about complete the sentence. And I can't tell you how often when I'm coaching, I ask a person, okay, what are your goals? And they'll just, shout out a brief phrase, a short phrase. Well, okay, let's get more specific. What is that exactly? What does it mean to be, let's say, creative? And then finish the sentence. Line up, all sorts of different things. What does it mean to be creative? What does it mean to be happy? What does it mean to be disciplined? If I'm just giving myself lip service, I need to be more disciplined. Okay, what is that exactly? And again, there's so much more power, genius, if you will, inside of us that we just need to tap into, as long as we just take the time. And for me, it's interesting. I was, 17 years of medical training, total focus. I mean, hours and hours studying, and hours in the hospitals, then hours and hours in the operating room. Didn't give myself much of an opportunity to do anything else. And in fact, as soon as I finished my residency, that's sort of when, my life began. Most people began their life about 10 years before that. And so me, of course, I made a couple of decisions that didn't help me in certain ways, but helped me in others. And you can figure out what all that means. I always I decide pretty much daily today that I'm just getting started. And that's exciting because every single day I'm learning something new. I'm purposing. And I was criticized at one point. So, you're never going to be happy because you're always searching. Well, yeah, I am a searcher. I am that person that's looking for a greater meaning, because my purpose in life is to inspire others to dream again. And I do that through a lot of different modalities. This radio show is one of them. The surgeries that I do as a plastic surgeon is another one. The stem cell surgery that I do outside of this country, unfortunately, because, with the regulations and the access to technology, it's just not possible. And anybody getting stem cells in this country, just be very mindful. Do your research. Make sure you're going to the right persons, that it's coming out of integrity. This whole stem cell, dimension is expanding, exploding so much. Everybody wants to get in, and you just have to be mindful. But my point that I'm getting at is this, is that I'm helping people having, more groundedness in their own personal, mental, emotional, and spiritual lives. Also in the physical form, but also in their health form as well. And so using stem cells, for example, we can treat people with Parkinson's and heart disease. And so they have a higher quality of life now, so they can focus on dreaming again. Same thing with the coaching, is that, when we get so obsessed by all these negative thoughts, or I don't like the word negative, disempowering thoughts that don't serve us. And all we need is someone to help us change those. I still get a coach. And I'm oftentimes, in fact, every single time, I'm not shocked, but it's like I'm taken aback, like, oh, okay, I didn't see that one coming. And it's great. And it's tough sometimes. It's tough to admit that, you're at fault. And the sooner that you get to not put any, not going to put negative energy on something that is your weakness or your fault, and remind yourself, look, this is my opportunity to make a shift. This is my opportunity to grow. This is my opportunity to expand. There's no such thing as perfection. It's just that journey that we every single day get to embark on with our own personal expansion, with ongoing experience and learning, so that we can then gift and give and contribute and constantly grow. So a couple of other things that Nathaniel talks about is self-acceptance. It's self-responsibility. And one way to look at it is being response-able. So that's really what responsibility is, being response-able, able to respond in the way that's in alignment and integrity with yourself. So in this world, unfortunately, so many are just a victim. And sometimes I'm a victim too. And then, fortunately for me, over the years, I've been able to pick it, catch it relatively quickly and say, okay, you're being a victim again. And that's sort of where I got this term, permission to be human. But that's another story and another day. But you're responsible for your thinking, and therefore you're responsible for your actions and your behavior. You can't blame anybody else. And, one of my challenges, and I shared this last time, I think it was, is that there are too many people obsessed with pointing out and criticizing what's wrong with everyone else and what needs to change in this life. And they create so much chaos. And this is in just, everywhere. That the truth is, when you really talk to the smart ones, they all tell us, look, you got to change yourself first. You got to work on yourself first before you're in a position to say anything about anyone else. Because it simply is that, you may have a different, perspective of the world, different model of the world. You have different values, different beliefs, different things that are important to you. And it's not fair to just assume that the other person will think the same. And that's the challenge that we all must face. And so it's a little crazy in this country now because of all the hot-headedness and the inconsistencies and, quite frankly, the hypocrisy that happens. Having double standards here and there. And that's just not in politics, it's everywhere. And so we have to take responsibility of who we are. That first and foremost. Because what then happens when you're responsible for yourself, then, there's no longer need to be tolerant or patient or understanding because you've taken care of yourself. You're complete. You're fulfilled. You're on mission. And you're not subjugating your actions, to things like fear or scarcity. That's also part of fear. And when you go on that path of enlightenment, if you want to call it that, you're just lightening the path for yourself to make better meanings of what's happening around you. So the other one is being assertive. Just staying in integrity. Not doing things that little voice in your head says, well, you shouldn't do this, right? Not sabotaging yourself, not sabotaging your identity. And that happens consistently. And it doesn't even have to be things that are quote unquote bad, like stealing or something. No, it could be just that you're not following your purpose. You're not following, what it is that you really want to do in this world. I always talk about, what is it that, the question that we all need to be asking is, what is it that you really want, really? And there's two reallys in here, because the first really is the one that you've learned with those downloads up to the age of about 7, and all the other things that you've acquired over the years. And now you feel like, oh, I'm obligated. I should do this. I should do that. When in reality, you don't. You don't want to do a particular thing. And so that's being in integrity, willing to stand in the fire of criticism from others and saying, hey, I'm cool, I'm complete. Yeah, I got 5 minutes. So, and that's important. I am willing, and I'm getting better at this because I still like that connection and I still like that significance, but I'm willing to forsake, those connections in the pursuit of the truth, my truth. But speaking through love. And I credit this to my incredible friend and brother, Chad Cooper, a phenomenal coach. You ever need a coach? Well, besides myself, of course. But Chad Cooper is amazing. ChadECooper.com. Check him out. So, truth through love. And speaking your truth through love. That's a key component of how we need to show up all the time. And as much as you don't like things, as much as things hurt you because of your beliefs, again, you can still speak your truth through love. And that's that responsibility together with assertiveness, letting people know what's going on. And then finally, of course, it's the purpose. We got to live that purpose. Because here's what's interesting. Just think of all the things that you're doing that you really shouldn't be doing, like watching TV or reading magazines. All of that's really a waste of time. I mean, let's be honest. It really is. Because where we find our fulfillment is in growth and in contribution and in building and purpose and creating and establishing, three important things in life. And this is what's called the self-determination theory. It's that autonomy that we can decide when things are going to be done, how they're going to be done, with whom they're going to be done. And then mastering whatever it is that we're doing at the highest level. And then wrapping that all up with purpose. So we've got to have those things. We've got to have that purpose in life. We've got to have that meaning. Just to live that life, without purpose, there's an internal turmoil that's happening. And there's an internal dissent that's happening that permeates through all parts of life. And so we can be successful on our own terms. And it's going to be different for everyone. But whatever you can imagine, you can make happen. And so your job then is to do that deep work and discover the true genius, the true potential inside of you. And forget about the medications and forget about the lip service and you got to do this, got to do that. Just do the deep work. Find out what prescription you're going to want to use that best is going to serve you. And it's different than the prescription you've been using. And so find that out. Find a coach. There's so many incredible resources out there. Incredible talent. Books. Workshops. I mean, it's exciting to see the stage of possibility that is out there. And what's important with this is take a lot of prescriptions, a lot of different things that you can tap into, and then decide, which ones, and constantly revolve them in and out so that you can see what's more appropriate. So Sedona, thank you for listening in. I hope you learned something today, a little different than usual. Our interviewee couldn't make it. It's okay. I was happy to show up. And I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, prescription for your transformation, real people, real conversations, real success. Reach me at drrademaker.com. And I'm also coming up with an incredible concept out there that's going to help people, consumers connect with wellness providers. So once again, I'll be back next week, probably solo again, out in Sacramento, California, getting ready for Burning Man. I'll talk about that next time.
Thanks for listening to Dr. Rademaker's Prescription for Transformation. Join Dr. Bart Rademaker live right here on Radio Star Worldwide each week or on demand 24/7.